Now, how's your day going, guys? My name is Paul Vincent, and today we'll discuss about safety issues in ICT. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into the topic. Alright, I will be pinning the topic at the upper corner of the screen to keep you reminded. But before we start, let's get to know the learning objective of today's topic. There you have it. We have already established that ICT is important in teaching and learning. Why? Well, because it enhances teaching and learning process, it motivates students, it helps to achieve the objectives of lessons effectively. The fourth one is it assists in teaching of difficult concepts. Next is it obtains active participation from students. And lastly, it helps in inculcating 21st century skills. Now, going back to our topic, what comes to your mind when you hear the word safety issues? Right, hazards and danger. But what safety issues could be lurking in ICT? We'll get to know all about that during the discussion. Now, let us first understand that this is a global issue. Access and civil liberties are two sets of issues in ICT policy which are crucial to the modern society. The other concern is civil liberties, which refer to human rights and freedom. So it means that these issues are being faced globally. We, the Philippines, are not the only one having issues with accessibility and possible infringement of civil liberties pertaining to ICT. Now, when we talk about civil liberties concerns, this include the following: freedom of expression, the right to privacy, the right to communicate, and lastly, intellectual property rights. So we'll talk about all of these in further details in a while. Now, access to the use of internet and ICT. We've mentioned about internet access earlier. What is access? Access means the possibility for everyone to use the internet and other media. In richer countries, basic access to internet is almost available to all with faster broadband connection. Now guys, do you have any idea which country has the fastest internet speed? Well, it's not even America, guys. The country which has the fastest internet speed is Taiwan, having an average speed of 85.02 Mbps. That's a whooping 85 plus megabits per second, just imagine that. Then it is followed by Singapore, Sweden, Denmark, and Japan. Wow. Now, having said all that, there are still countries where access to internet is still a challenge. That's the sad reality. Now, curious about the Philippines? Well, we have the slowest internet speed in the entire Southeast Asian region. And we are in fact ranked 158 out of 190 countries worldwide. Whew! Now that is sad. There's nothing much that we can do about it. The only good thing about having slow internet speed is that it taught us to be patient. Really patient, guys. Now let's talk about the issue of infringement to civil liberties or human rights. What are specific internet issues on internet policy that have relationship to civil liberties or human rights? Let's study the examples that follow. Issue number 1. Freedom of expression and censorship. Under international human rights conventions, all people are guaranteed the rights for free expression. However, with a shift from communicating through letter, newspapers, and public meetings to electronic communications and online networking, I need to look into how these new means modifies the understanding of freedom of expression and censorship. Well, to me, this is understandable. If you come to think about it, the rights of expression were created prior to the advancement of technology, so it may not be as effective and applicable today. Unlike before when we use snail mail to send letters, now we make full use of our devices like our smartphones, laptops, and making use of internet. So I would understand if the UN would look into amending the rights to suit the changes. Alright? Won't you agree? Now, the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights provides that everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Likewise, the right to freedom of opinion and expression. So some examples are the following. First one is individual rights are given up in order to have access to electronic networks. Second is censorship restricts the transmission of information by blocking it or filtering the information. Blocking is preventing access to whole areas of internet based upon the blacklist of certain internet addresses, while filtering is sifting the pockets of data or messages as they move across computer networks and eliminating those considered undesirable materials. The selection of sites that are blocked or filtered has been considered as an issue. Have you experienced trying to watch a clip or video, yet you get a message saying this video is blocked in your country instead? That is an example of blocking. The NTC, or the National Telecommunication Commission of the Philippines, has the power to regulate and control all telecommunications. Packets of data were also mentioned earlier during the definition of filtering. It is actually a highly technical term to me. However, if you are familiar with it, typical packets are the MAC addresses, IP addresses, HTTPS, and the DHCP. So, when you access information through the internet, it goes from one packet to the other. So it means that there is a high chance that the information you get is not the same information with someone who is also trying to access the same information elsewhere. And that is because of filtering. Now, warning. When you are surfing the web, you may think you are anonymous, but there are various ways that information about you or your activities can be collected without your consent. Now, this is so true. Some sites retain our information and activities and shares it with other parties. And there is also the presence of hackers that could get access to our computers by using malwares. And number 3, defamation actions may be used to silence critics. This action deters the freedom of expression. Well, after all, it could escalate to a lawsuit and be charged with libel or slander. However, both can be avoided with careful research before blubbering or writing an article. Let's move to issue number 2, which is privacy and security. Privacy policies are an issue. Most commercial sites have a privacy policy. When someone uses a site and clicks I agree button, it is as if you have turned over private information to any authority that may access it. Well, I'm pretty sure we have all encountered the must click I agree button, because like if you won't click on it, then you won't get access to their site. So we really are left with no other choice but to click on the I agree. Then the next thing we know, when we access another site, we get recommendations to our liking. Well, that's just algorithm in action, I guess. Now, there are types of privacy as shown by the following examples. For most, privacy means personal privacy, the right of individuals not to have their home, private life, or personal life interfered with. Well, pretty straightforward. Second is privacy of communication refers to the protection from interference with communication over the phone or internet. Respect for privacy of communication is an essential prerequisite for the maintenance of human relationship via technological communications media. Well, we just don't want our phone calls or video calls to be recorded unknowingly. Well, who wants that, right? Third is information privacy is related to the use of computers and communication systems which are able to hold and process information about large numbers of people at a high speed. It is important to ensure that information will only be used for purposes for which it was gathered and will not be disclosed to others without consent of the individuals. Well, this is what I was talking about earlier about having our information being sold to third parties. We want to make sure that the information we are providing is being used and will only be used for the intended purpose and nothing else. Now let's do a quick review. So far we've talked about two issues that have relationship to civil liberties. Issue number 1, freedom of expression and censorship, and issue number 2, which is privacy and security. Then we have issue number 3, which is surveillance and data retention. The use of electronic communications has enhanced the development of indirect surveillance. In the indirect surveillance, there is no direct contact between the agent and the subject of surveillance, but the evidence of activities can be traced. The new and powerful form of indirect surveillance is dataveillance. It is the use of personal information to monitor a person's activities, while data retention is the storage and use of information from communication systems. Well, let's say for example, you love to travel and you use internet to look for the must-go places and then book your trip online. Then don't be surprised when you get sent notifications and recommendations online about the best places to travel. They use your information to monitor what you love to do most, then actually give your recommendations to your liking. Now, there is a very little that can be done to prevent surveillance. What can be done is to make surveillance difficult. This is what we call counter-surveillance or information security if it refers to computers and electronic communication. Now, we have to be very cautious in disclosing any personal, private, or confidential information about ourselves online. We have to ensure that the site is credible to avoid misuse of personal information. Now, we are done with freedom of expression and censorship, privacy and security, surveillance, and data retention. Now, let's jump to issue number 4, which is e-pollutants from e-waste or electronic waste. Now, large amount of e-waste is generated by ICT. These are in particular terminal equipments used for computing like the PCs and laptops, for broadcasting like the television and radio sets, telephony or the fixed mobile phones, and peripherals like the fax machines, printers, and scanners. The accumulated e-waste is due to rapid turnover of equipment due to rapid improvement of software. While material waste can be destroyed by crushing, toxic material brought about by the different equipment requires utmost management. Well, for us consumers, do we even consider this? Did it ever cross your mind what happens to the laptops, to the computers, or to the smartphones we throw? No, I don't think so, and that's okay. We can only do so much. As long as you dispose them properly, then you already did your part. Okay? Now, remedies include standardization and regulatory measures to increase the life cycle of equipment before they become obsolete. Efficient extraction of toxic components and requiring the recycling of both consumers and equipment vendors are selling must be required. If not controlled, then e-waste will tremendously affect climate change, damage human lives, and overload the capacity of the earth in carrying solid waste. The next thing we know, electronics companies are taking into consideration throwing or discarding e-waste into outer space. Wow, so we have already talked about the safety issues in ICT. Now, it is about time to discuss about its implications to teaching and learning. Now, how do the policy guidelines, projects, and issues relate to the teaching and learning? Now, let's start for the teachers and teaching. Well, it guides the teachers on what they should teach that relate to ICT and how to teach it. Second, technology should never replace any human teacher. See, emotional attachment and connection is still very important, guys, and most importantly, we get to keep our jobs. Third is there are rules and regulations that govern the use of technology. Caution should be observed to protect individual privacy. Fourth is all the issues and many more shall be part of the teaching content, as each teacher will be encouraged to use technology in teaching. Now, how about for the learners and learning? The learners of the 21st century are even more advanced than some of our teachers. However, learners still need guidance on how to use or regulate technology use. As there are positive and negative effects of technology use, learners should know the difference. Learners should not only know the benefits of technology use, but they should know how they can be protected from the hazards that technology bring to their lives. Learners should take advantage of the potential of learning support they can derive, such as the development of higher order thinking skills, the development of learning communities through collaboration, the enhancement of skills to manage the vast resources as 21st century learners, and many more. Well, these are just some issues of ICT and internet policy and regulation. There are other safety issues with ICT, and this can include few situations that can result in accidents. Let's say, for example, trailing cables. We are all aware that computer equipment is often connected to lots of cables. If these cables are just left laying on the floor, then they can cause people to trip over them. Now, the easiest solution is for us to place cables inside cable ducts or under the flooring or carpet. Then we also have spilt drinks or food. If any liquids are spilt on electrical equipment such as computers, it can result to damage to the equipment or worst, an electric shock to the user. So the best solution is to just stay away with drinks and food when you're facing your computers. Then we also have overloaded power sockets. Well, I guess we are all aware that plugging too many power cables into a socket can result in the socket being overloaded. Then heating, then it may result to a fire, right? So solution is just don't plug too many cables into a socket. Always make sure that there are also fire extinguishers nearby and in proper condition. Then we have heavy objects falling. Many items of equipment are very heavy. Monitors, printers, and etc. Heavy items can cause serious injury if they fall on people. So the best way to do away with this, or to stay away with this problem, is to make sure equipment is placed on strong tables or shelves. That's it. I guess we've discussed everything. And again, this is Paul Vincent, and that is safety issues on ICT. Bye.